Welcome to the What Just Happened podcast. Today, we're going to be dissecting a potentially dangerous piece of financial advice. And it's coming from the richest man on earth.
Yeah. It's a narrative that basically encourages us to ignore our own financial survival.
Right. All based on this utopian promise that, might never actually arrive.
It's a conversation we absolutely have to have. Because, usually when a billionaire gives advice, it's about something predictable, tax loopholes or some investment strategy.
Sure.
But this is completely different. We're looking at a scenario where one of the most influential voices on the planet is effectively telling the working class to just dismantle their safety nets.
And I want to be super clear right off the bat. We are not talking about whether you should buy a Tesla or invest in crypto. This is about the absolute bedrock of personal finance.
Saving for your old age. It's exactly. Saving for retirement. The thing that really stopped me in my tracks, and honestly, it's the whole reason we're doing this deep dive, is a specific claim. It was made by Elon Musk in January of 2025.
I remember this.
He was on a podcast, and he said, and I'm quoting here, "One side recommendation I have is, don't worry about squirreling money away for retirement in 10 or 20 years. It won't matter."
It won't matter. That's the phrase, isn't it? It just hangs in the air.
It does.
And the context here is it's vital because he's not saying the world is ending in some, nuclear fireball. He's arguing the absolute opposite.
Paradise is coming.
Right. His premise is that within a window of just 5 to 10 years, artificial intelligence and robotics will generate such a massive surplus of goods and services, he calls it true abundance, that the cost of living will just drop.
To zero.
Effectively, yes.
Yeah.
To zero. So in his view, saving money today is like, hoarding firewood right before the invention of the electric heater. He thinks it's just obsolete behavior, which, on the surface, sounds fantastic. Who doesn't want to live in a world where everything's free?
Of course.
But this isn't just some fun sci-fi thought experiment over a beer. This is actionable advice. He's dispensing it to millions of listeners. And that's where we have to stop and ask, what just happened? Why is a man worth roughly $726 billion telling people who, statistically, might struggle to cover a $500 emergency? Why is he telling them they don't need to prepare for the future?
And that is the what just happened angle. We have to look at this not just as, bad financial planning.
No.
This is a masterclass in narrative control. When you really start to peel back the layers, this looks less like a prediction based on data and more like a reality distortion field, one that's designed to benefit specific business interests.
The AI hype cycle.
The AI hype cycle. It's a classic case of a powerful figure projecting a future that, it justifies their current valuation, potentially at the expense of the financial stability of the average person.
The stakes feel incredibly high here. It's a binary outcome. If he's right, we're all heading to this paradise of leisure where robots are feeding us grapes.
Right.
But if he's wrong, and people actually listen to him, we're looking at a generation of elderly people facing destitution, all because they bet their 401k on a podcast soundbite.
That is the gamble. So our mission for this deep dive is to strip away that shiny veneer of techno-optimism.
Let's do it.
We need to look at the hard physics, the cold economics, and the power dynamics behind this claim. We're going to explore why efficiency isn't the same thing as free.
Okay.
Why the history of technology suggests wealth concentrates, it doesn't just trickle down, and why this advice represents a fundamental, almost dangerous disconnect from the reality of the working class.
All right, let's start by unpacking this utopia, because if I'm going to stop saving money, I need to know exactly what is replacing my bank account.
A fair question.
What is Musk actually promising? Because don't save for retirement implies that someone or something is going to take care of me.
So the vision is what he calls universal high income. And you should pay attention to the shift in language there.
High income, not basic.
Exactly. Not universal basic income, which kind of implies just scraping by. He's talking about high income. He's painting a picture where AI, coupled with, unlimited energy and advanced robotics, just supercharges productivity.
So in this world, there's no scarcity.
None.
Yeah.
You want a product. A robot makes it for pennies. You need a service. An AI agent does it instantly.
I remember listening to that clip, and he was very specific. He mentioned something like would see better medical care than anyone has today, available for everyone within 5 years.
Yes.
And that you could learn anything you want for free, it sounds like. I don't know, the Federation from Star Trek. No money, just stuff.
It does sound like Star Trek, and that's the appeal. That's why the narrative is so powerful, so sticky. But look at the timeline.
5 to 10 years.
He's suggesting this massive global transformation happens in 5 to 10 years. That's the magic box argument. It relies on this assumption that AI and robotics will just scale exponentially without hitting any friction.
Any physical or economic walls.
Right. It assumes that labor and money become irrelevant almost overnight.
Okay, but wait, I have to play devil's advocate here for a second. We're talking about Elon Musk. This is the guy who landed rockets backwards on a barge in the ocean when everyone said it was impossible.
He did.
He made electric cars cool when the entire auto industry said it couldn't be done. Hasn't he kind of earned a little bit of faith on these big predictions? Why is this one the one we should doubt so much?
That's a fair question, and it's the reason people listen. He has achieved some true engineering marvels.
No doubt.
But there's a huge difference between engineering ambition and financial certainty. If you're going to bet your financial survival on a timeline, you have to audit the messenger's previous timeline. Let's look at the data, the pattern recognition, if you will. Back in 2016, the promise was full self-driving next year. And that wasn't just a vague hope.
No, it was a sales pitch. People paid thousands for it.
They did, and that promise has been repeated for, what, nearly a decade now?
I remember that video. They had a car driving itself through town with, like, the Rolling Stones playing, which later turned out to be heavily staged.
Then you jump to 2019, Tesla Autonomy Day. The claim then was 1 million robo-taxis by 2020.
1 million. In 1 year.
He said the cars would become appreciating assets. They'd earn you money while you slept.
I was definitely looking for one of those robo-taxis in 2020. I remember because my Uber to the airport was surging to like $50.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. The robo-taxi never showed up.
It did not. And then there was the claim in 2017 about having humans on Mars by 2024.
We missed that one too.
We did. And look, the point isn't to mock the ambition. Ambition is the fuel of progress. But when you move from setting engineering goals to giving financial advice for the general public, the margin for error has to change.
It's a different standard.
A totally different standard. If the timeline for self-driving cars was off by a decade or more, then betting your entire retirement on a total global economic overhaul happening in 5 years is, well, it's just statistically reckless.
You know, there's also some fine print in this narrative that I think gets glossed over. Even Musk admits the transition will be, and I quote, bumpy. He talked about social unrest and loss of purpose.
Bumpy is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence. A whole lot.
Right.
When a billionaire says a transition will be bumpy, what do they mean? They mean their stock portfolio might dip 10%, or they might have to deal with some annoying regulatory hearings in D.C.
Okay.
But when a person living paycheck to paycheck hears the word bumpy, that translates to hunger. It translates to homelessness. It means not being able to buy your insulin because the old economy broke before the new free one arrived.
So the narrative just ignores the human cost of that gap.
It totally glosses over it. If the abundance arrives 5 years too late, that's 5 years of absolute ruin for the people who didn't save.
This brings us to the hard reality. You know, how the world actually works. You mentioned earlier we need to look at the physics of this whole thing.
Yes.
Because usually when people talk economics, they ignore thermodynamics.
Yeah.
They treat the economy like it's a spreadsheet where you can just change a cell from a 5 to a 10.
Yeah.
But you can't, can you?
No, you absolutely cannot. Economics, at its core, is the management of physical resources. And physics has very, very strict rules.
Like the first law of thermodynamics.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed. You cannot create something from nothing. The whole abundance narrative treats AI as if it operates in a vacuum, like it just magically conjures value out of lines of code.
But AI runs on servers. It needs chips. It's not magic. It's metal and electricity.
It is the opposite of magic. It's heavy industry. Let's just list the physical requirements for this AI utopia. You need rare earth minerals. You need massive amounts of silicon, lithium, copper, so much water, huge amounts of it, for cooling these massive data centers. And land. You can't just software update a house into existence. You cannot 3D print atoms out of thin air.
Right. So even if the AI is super smart and can design a better house or a better robot, you still need the wood, the concrete, the steel.
And the energy to move all those materials from the mine to the factory to the construction site.
Which all costs something.
Of course. Mining and refining those materials costs energy and labor. That's the input. And as long as there is an input, there is a cost. And as long as there's a cost, there's a price. The idea that goods will become free violates the basic physics of production.
You can make things cheaper?
Much cheaper. But you can't make them free unless you've discovered a perpetual motion machine, which, last I checked, we haven't.
Then there's the second law of thermodynamics. This is the one about entropy, right? Things falling apart.
Everything degrades. That's the short version of the second law. Entropy always increases. There is no such thing as a set-it-and-forget-it technology.
But that's what the utopia narrative suggests. Build the robots once, and then they just work for us forever for free.
But look at reality. Solar panels lose efficiency. It's about 0.3% to 0.5% every single year. They physically degrade under UV light.
We see this with our phones. After 2 years, the battery life is just garbage. You have to charge it 3 times a day.
Precisely. That's chemistry fighting you. Batteries lose charge capacity because of dendrite formation and chemical breakdown inside. Mechanical parts wear out, gears grind down.
And circuits.
Circuits experience what's called electron migration. The actual physical atoms of the wire slowly move because of the current, and eventually the connection breaks. The infrastructure of abundance would require constant, expensive maintenance.
So if we have 1 billion robots making us dinner and cleaning our streets.
We need 1 billion repairs happening constantly, and here is the beautiful irony of it all.
What's that?
Musk's own businesses are the perfect case study for this. Tesla and SpaceX rely entirely on the fact that things require maintenance and, eventually, replacement. If Tesla cars were built to last forever with zero maintenance, they wouldn't sell very many cars after the first batch, would they?
That is a great point. The business model depends on the car eventually dying or becoming obsolete, so you have to buy a new one.
And think about the repair costs. A Tesla battery replacement can cost what? Anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000.
Wow.
That is the real-world cost of fighting entropy. That cost doesn't just vanish because an AI gets smarter. If technology were truly free and permanent, like the abundance narrative suggests, his companies wouldn't have their current revenue models. They depend on the cycle of consumption and replacement.
So what we have here is the efficiency fallacy. People are confusing efficient with free.
Yes. That's a perfect way to put it. Going from, say, 10 units of input to get a product down to only 2 units of input, that is a massive world-changing improvement. It's hyper-efficient.
But it's not zero.
It is not zero. And in a capitalist system, even if the cost to produce something drops to near zero, the price doesn't necessarily follow if the producer has a monopoly. But that leads us right into the economic power grab.
Let's go there. Because even if the physics worked out, even if we had magic batteries that never died, the economics are, well, they're tricky. The who pays trap seems pretty obvious. If AI does all the work, nobody has a job. If nobody has a job, nobody has wages. If nobody has wages, who is buying the products that the AI is making?
This is the economic death spiral that the universal high-income buzzword is trying to hand-wave away. Musk mentions this high income, but he offers no mechanism, no plan for who funds it.
Does it come from the government?
Okay, well, where does the government get tax revenue if there are no wages to tax? Does it come from the corporations themselves?
Why would they voluntarily give away their profits?
Exactly. Why would they?
Can we break this down with a really simple example? It just feels a little abstract.
Sure. Let's imagine a shoe factory.
Right.
In the old days, you had, say, 100 workers. They're all making shoes, getting paid wages, and then using those wages to buy shoes and food and pay rent.
A functioning little economy.
Right. Now the factory owner installs super advanced robots. He fires all 100 workers. The robots now make the shoes for nearly zero cost. Great.
For him?
For him. But the 100 workers now have $0.
So the owner's just sitting on a mountain of shoes.
A mountain of shoes. He has a factory full of free shoes and a parking lot full of broke people. The robots don't wear shoes. The unemployed workers can't buy shoes. That isn't a functional economy.
That's a storage problem.
It's a storage problem. Unless you force the factory owner to give the shoes away or you tax him heavily to pay the workers a UHI, the whole system just breaks.
You know, it feels like we're ignoring a lesson we should have learned a long, long time ago. We technically solved the production problem for a lot of things already, didn't we?
That is the critical insight. That's the whole ball game. The barrier to utopia has almost never been a lack of production capability.
It's something else.
It is a barrier of distribution, of politics, and frankly, of greed. Look at agriculture. We currently produce enough food to feed the entire global population. That is a fact.
Yet people starve.
People starve. Why? Logistics, profit motives, geopolitical borders. It's not a technology problem.
Same with housing. We have enough empty homes in many cities to house every homeless person. But we don't.
Because those homes are assets. They're investments. We have medical treatments that can save lives, yet people die because they can't afford them. The barrier isn't that we lack the AI to invent the medicine. The barrier is the patent system and the profit motive.
So a technological breakthrough doesn't automatically dismantle greed.
It does not. It does not result in benevolence from the people who hold the patents. History suggests it often does the opposite.
So if the AI is owned by corporations, which right now it is, they have a fiduciary duty to their shareholders to make as much money as possible, not to give away free stuff to the public.
Correct. And if you follow that logic, without a massive democratic restructuring of ownership, which is something tech oligarchs generally fight against with every lobbyist they can hire, the benefits of AI will concentrate at the top.
Not trickle down.
It won't trickle down as free stuff. It will consolidate as power. What we're seeing here is a potential consolidation of power, and it's being disguised as a technological inevitability.
It seems like we're being asked to trust that the people who are currently hoarding wealth will suddenly decide to share it once they have even more of it.
Which is a bet against all recorded human history.
Okay, I want to look at the financial reality right now.
Yeah.
Behind the curtain. Because the narrative is everything will be free soon, but the reality of the AI industry today is it's the opposite. It's incredibly expensive.
It's a money bonfire.
A money bonfire. That's a good way to put it.
It is one of the most capital-intensive industries in history. Training a big model like a GPT-4 costs somewhere between, say, $78 million and $200 million.
And that's just to train it one time.
One training run. And the infrastructure spending by the giants, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, it's in the hundreds of billions for 2025 alone.
And just running the thing, what they call inference, that costs a fortune too, right?
It does. We should probably clarify that term for everyone.
Yeah, good idea.
Training is like sending the AI to school. It reads the internet, it learns patterns. That costs millions. Inference is when you actually ask it a question and it gives you an answer.
So every time I ask ChatGPT to write a poem or summarize an email, that's inference.
That's inference, and it costs real money every single time. Think of it this way. Every time you ask an AI to write a limerick, a server farm somewhere in Iowa or Arizona drinks a bottle of water just to cool down the processors.
So we're essentially trading fresh water and electricity for haikus.
We are. That isn't free. That's an environmental invoice that comes due later. I saw an estimate that ChatGPT costs something like $700,000 a day just to keep the lights on.
So this leads to a profitability paradox. The AI industry is telling investors, give us billions of dollars, we need it to survive and build this massive infrastructure.
Right.
But at the same time, they're telling the public, money will soon be irrelevant. These two statements cannot both be true.
They cannot.
If money is about to become irrelevant, why are they so desperate to accumulate as much of it as they can right now?
You know, it really reminds me of the Uber model. When Uber first came out, the rides were incredibly cheap. It felt like the future had arrived. But it was all just subsidized by venture capital money.
The millennial lifestyle subsidy. I miss those $5 rides across town.
We all do. But what was happening? Uber was burning through investor cash to acquire market share and kill off the taxi industry.
And once the competition was gone,
prices went right back up. Now an Uber can cost the same as a taxi, sometimes more. The current crop of cheap or free AI tools, they're being subsidized by investors who expect a massive return on that investment.
they're not funding a charity.
They are not funding a charitable utopia. They are funding a monopoly. And when the music stops, they're going to want their money back with interest. And that means charging us.
Okay. Let's stop being a total buzzkill for a second. I want to steelman Musk's argument.
Fair enough.
Is there any version of this world where he's right? Are there things that actually will get cheaper, maybe even free?
We should be fair. Yes, there are specific sectors that will get dramatically cheaper. Education is a prime example.
Oh, so.
An AI tutor is infinitely scalable. Once you build the model, the cost of teaching one student versus teaching 1 million students is marginal. A kid in a remote village could have access to the same quality math tutor as a kid at a fancy prep school.
That is genuinely revolutionary.
It is. Coding is another area. The cost of generating software is plummeting. Administrative tasks, legal document review, these things will see massive deflation. So yes, the cost of a decent life could absolutely drop.
Okay.
But maybe not to zero.
So if my rent goes down and my food gets cheaper, maybe I don't need as much savings.
Maybe. But cheaper is not free. And cheaper doesn't help you one bit if you have zero income because an AI took your job. The only way universal high income works in that scenario is if we fundamentally change how we tax capital.
We would need to tax the robots.
We'd have to tax the robots.
Right.
If the robot takes the job, the robot, or really its owner, has to pay the tax that supports the displaced human.
But that's a political block, isn't it? Not a technological one.
It is entirely political. This requires the wealthy, including Musk, to agree to massive redistribution of their wealth or even nationalization of their tech. There is absolutely no evidence that they are willing to do this.
They often do the exact opposite.
Exactly. They move their headquarters to avoid the taxes we have now.
What about crypto? We hear this a lot. Web3, decentralized ownership. Could that solve the distribution problem? People say if we all own the network, we own the value.
It's a common counterargument, but here's the reality. Crypto changes the rails of money. It changes how it moves, how it settles. It does not solve the fundamental ownership of productive assets. Tokenizing a robot on a blockchain doesn't make the robot free to build or maintain. You still need the lithium, the steel, and the energy.
It's still physics.
It's still physics. Without major policy changes, crypto just creates a different set of winners and losers, usually the early adopters. It doesn't inherently distribute wealth to the latecomers or the people who can't afford to buy in the first place.
I want to zoom out and look at the messenger again. We talked about his track record, but let's talk about the specific wealth gap here. We did some math on Musk's net worth. Roughly $726 billion.
It's a number that's so large it just becomes abstract. It's really hard to get your head around.
So we broke it down. If you took that $726 billion and divided it by all 8 billion people on Earth, you get about $91 per person.
Think about that for a second. One man holds enough wealth to give every single human being on the planet, from New York to Nairobi, roughly a week's worth of wages in many developing nations.
Or a nice dinner in the U.S.
Or a nice dinner. And yet, he is the one telling us that money won't matter.
It's just, the disconnect is staggering.
It's easy to say money won't matter when you have more of it than anyone in history. This creates what I would call the invulnerability gap. Elon Musk could lose 99.9% of his wealth tomorrow. He could be catastrophically wrong about everything.
And he'd still be fine.
He would still have hundreds of millions of dollars. He would still never know hunger or insecurity. He is completely insulated from the consequences of his own advice.
The listener, the average American.
Their profile is starkly different. We know that 32% of Americans cannot cover a $500 emergency with their savings. 64% live paycheck to paycheck. Social Security is facing a shortfall in the 2030s.
These people don't have a margin for error.
None. For them, saving isn't about hoarding. It's about survival. It's about having the ability to walk away from a bad boss or handle an unexpected medical bill.
So telling these people not to save,
it's not just wrong. It's an act of negligence. It is advice given from a fortress of invulnerability to people who are standing out in the rain.
You know, there's a funny meta layer to this whole thing. We actually decided to ask the Oracle itself.
You asked an AI.
We did. We went to the very technology Musk is hyping. We asked a few of them. Elon Musk says I shouldn't save for retirement. Is he right? What do you think they said?
Oh, this is fascinating. I'm guessing they didn't say, yeah, trust Elon.
Not at all. The AI, the very product he's selling, almost universally advised against relying on it for retirement. It gave really standard, boring financial advice.
Like what?
Diversify, save early, the power of compound interest, all the stuff your dad tells you.
That is incredible. The AI knows better than the futurist.
It seems so.
The AI recognizes logic and risk. It knows it has hallucinations. It knows it has physical constraints. In a weird way, it's the product warning the consumer not to trust the marketing department. It's saying, look, I'm a tool, not a savior. Don't bet your life on me.
So let's bring this all home. We've covered the physics entropy always wins. We've covered the economics, there's no free lunch. We've covered the power dynamics, monopolies don't like to share. What is the final verdict here?
The verdict is that we're witnessing a very dangerous conflation of a marketing narrative with financial advice. Physics demands inputs, that means cost. Economics demands profit, that means price. And history shows that power concentrates, which means inequality.
So the abundance narrative is a tool.
It's likely a tool to keep stock prices high and regulatory scrutiny low. It keeps the hype train rolling down the tracks.
And for you, the listener, this really comes down to a wager. It's a bet.
It is the ultimate asymmetric wager. Let's just look at the game theory of it.
Okay.
Scenario A. You save for retirement, and Musk turns out to be right. The utopia arrives. Money is meaningless. What's the result?
You have some extra money in paradise. No big deal.
You lost nothing but maybe some consumption today. There is literally no downside.
All right, scenario B.
Scenario B, you don't save, and Musk is wrong. The utopia is delayed, or it's expensive, or it's owned by a monopoly that charges you rent for everything. What's the result then?
Poverty. Ruin in your old age. You're dependent on a state that might not have the funds to help you.
The downside is catastrophic.
So the only rational move is to ignore the billionaire.
Completely. When the cost of being wrong is total ruin, you do not take that bet. You prepare for the storm, and if the sun comes out instead, great. But you don't burn your umbrella because the weatherman promised sunshine.
It's sobering. It's a real reminder that while it's fun and exciting to think about the future, we have to live in the present. And the present requires a safety net.
And it requires accountability. We need to stop letting these powerful narratives just override basic math and common sense.
That's a great place to leave it. So here's a final thought for everyone listening. When a man with $726 billion, who will never know hunger or insecurity, tells you that your future is guaranteed by his technology, ask yourself one simple question. If he's wrong, will he be there to write you a check? Or will he be on Mars?
My money's on Mars.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive. As always, scrutinize the sources of your financial advice and really look at the incentives behind the narratives you hear. We'll see you next time.